Zero hour is here. Turn the greatest political and financial upheaval in modern history to your advantage. Harry S. Dent Jr. is joining us in just one moment. But first, take a look at this.
We don't know what we're doing. We have leaders that are grossly incompetent.
They said it could never happen again.
The American Revolution, the U.S. Civil War, World War I, the 1929 crash, the rise of Hitler, World War II, the atomic bomb, the Arab oil crisis, and the global financial crisis of 2008.
Winston Churchill once said, the farther back you look, the farther forward you're likely to see.
Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. What if all these events happen simultaneously?
Imagine the unimaginable.
The cycle of history suggests that we are on the brink of something this big.
Something of a magnitude never seen before.
Where mankind faces challenges, endures the healing, and rises up again into prosperity, strength, and wealth.
This is about the destruction of the old ways.
Top-down management, establishment politics, social engineering, financial and monetary manipulation, wealthy elitism,
and the rising up of a new world. History tells the future.
Are you ready for Zero Hour? The greatest political and economic revolution since the advent of democracy itself.
History tells the future. Beautiful way to say that. I'm actually, just so I get it out there, working on a book that has that basic title, and I haven't read Zero Hour. It just came in a few days ago again, just like Michael Savage's book. I can't wait to read it. By the way, I don't get paid to promote these books, and I don't just have people on because they're paying me to have them on. He's not paying me to have them on. I had Michael Savage on because he's a great guest, and I love reading his books. The same thing with Mr. Dent. But if you see a confluence or coming together of the basic terms we're using, it's not because we're plagiarizing each other. It's because if you study history, you know the future. If you know history, you know the future. History rhymes, as Mr. Dent has quoted another famous historian. And again, we have these corrupt elites. We have the centralization. We have the crony capitalism. I want to see it come down. But then I see Trump come in and it puffed back up, even though it's a fraud. He's trying to do it for the general public, and it's now been tied to his success and the success of Americana and free market. And so it makes me not want it to fail. But then I do realize it's still built, even though he's cutting regulations and doing some good things, it's built within a system designed to implode. So when do we run into that brick wall, and what do we do once we hit it? Harry S. Dent, thanks for joining us. Zero Hour is the new book, harrydent.com. Thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, this really, I've been talking about this for many years. Obviously, we have a debt bubble, a financial asset bubble in stocks and real estate and everything, and those things always burst. And that was my last book, The Sale of a Lifetime. But this book is about something I've been talking about for many years, a bigger revolution like democracy and free market capitalism that in their pure forms came together in the late 1700s. And you know what now? Central banks have taken over free markets and special interests have taken over democracy. We don't have those two factors anymore. And this revolution with the internet and better communication and even like cryptocurrencies and new things coming out is going to change this political and our business organizations and everything else and create an even greater bottoms-up economy around those principles.
Sure, so you're saying Zero Hour, I haven't read it yet, is about what happens after the next crash.
Yes. Well, and it's also about what you do coming into it. You have to protect your assets. The U.S. dollar did the best in the last crash and will again. High-quality bonds do well. That's what does well in a deflationary crash when bubbles burst. Everything else gets killed. So you have to protect your wealth now. You have to consider, where do I live? How do I protect myself from some level of chaos in society? Because this is not going to be easy, what we're going to go through. We got to get rid of a bubble. We've got to change our political system. We've got to realign around cultures that are more compatible, like the red and blue cultures in the U.S. and the Sunni and the Shia in the Middle East and all this stuff. There's a lot to do here. So you really need to be settled down and get safe first. And then, you know, we can tell you how to take advantage of these changes. There's going to be huge opportunities come out of it.
How long on the short term versus the long term? Can the bubble stay inflated?
Well, you know, for economically, the worst, we have 4 indicators pointing down into early 2020, and then a few more pointing down into 2022, 23. So I'd say the next 3 to 5 years is going to be the worst economically and for things like the stock market. But this political revolution we're talking about is going to take a couple decades to really set in. And we're talking about, you know, I've got a chart here as well. We got 3 cycles pointing to a major revolution like the late 1700s, a 250-year deep political revolution, an 84-year populist cycle, which started in the early 30s, and again here with Trump and Brexit, and then a 28-year and an 80-year economic cycle. So this is going to only take 4, 5, 6 years to play out. But the bigger political revolution, and then in the next chart we have globalization. There's a backlash against globalization, which Trump is leading more than anybody.
And that was my next question. The EU says, oh, try to leave us? We built a secret army, just like Germany did in the 30s. We're going to invade you. Already 5 countries, day one, say, we're ready to fight you. I mean, the EU, once you have to start talking about fighting members that never voted to enter, you're in, you're done.
And Spain's having to fight Catalan, and on and on and on. We show in this book around the world, we have countries in Europe, the United States, even China, India, everywhere you look, where there are huge disparities in incomes and cultures and religions between different parts of countries. And you know what? You can't bring those together. Our political polarization is the most extreme, much more than the Great Depression and the Roaring '20s. More like the Civil War. So
sure.
Like we said in this little short video, what if we have kind of like a Civil War, a Great Depression, and a revolution in politics and business at the same time?
And that's what the historic,
that's what we're looking at.
And that's what you're saying, that's what we're looking at. That's what the historic patterns and this contemporary information all points towards kind of a superstorm?
Yes, and again, I've been saying this for a long time, but I've been concentrating before on the bubble in debt and financial assets, because that's the first thing to go. But I've always been saying, I've been saying for 20 years since my first book, we're going to have the biggest revolution since democracy and free market capitalism.
And it's happening. Stay there. Harry Dent, 0 Hour. Tell folks to get the book in a moment. We're going to go to break, come right back. Folks, I want to try to fix things. And politically, we're trying to do it. But he's absolutely right. We have to be ready. We have to be aware of what's happening. It's absolutely critical. We're going to come back with him and get into 0 Hour, what it means, the political revolutions he's talking about, the economic revolutions, the radicalization of the so-called left, which I was never a right-winger or a left-winger. I'm just a populist, but we're going to talk about it all. Briefly, it's important to exercise free speech and promote Americana. We have a new shirt that's designer quality, really soft, really nice, won't tread on me, with a new design of the Gadsden flag. It's very iconic. I think this is the best shirt we've ever designed. Infowars.com on the right shoulder with an American flag. Infowars.com on the back of the shirt as well. That shirt is now available. Free shipping store-wide. We had to end 50% off on apparel because we sold out of most of it. And on Super Male Vitality and some other products, but we've expanded to Z-Shield, the heavy metal detoxifier that you take under the tongue that's so amazing. That's 50% off, even though it's going to sell out soon, but we got more coming in. Caveman True Paleo, the bone broth, the turmeric, the chocolate mushroom, all of it, 50% off and free shipping. Never gone that low. We've had 50% off before, but not free shipping on top of it. So we've got that. Vitamin Mineral Fusion, 50% off with free shipping. Super Blue Fluoride-Free Mouthwash, 50% off. DNA Force back in stock. 25% off free shipping. Secret 12, that's got us in the next few days, 50% off. And you're not just getting great supplements and great shirts and great books and great videos and great water filtration. You're funding an operation that is expanding in the face of the globalist and just trying to cover all the different angles to give the public the intelligence and information they need to make better decisions so all of us are better off. So, you know, you ask, when do I have authors on? I only have authors on I read. We had Michael Savage. We have Mr. Dent on. I'll read both these books. So we'll be right back on the other side. Stay with me. Mr. Harry Dent, formerly with Bain Capital and a lot of other big groups, has a great history as a researcher and economist and author, is joining us right now. In the last segment today, I haven't gotten to all these videos of, oh, the little vacuum cleaner robot in your house hacked by hackers watching you in your house, or hackers getting into your thermostat, because I covered it 20 years ago. You get you get today's news 20 years early is basically what's really happening here. So that's all going to be coming up. But you were getting into revolutions. I understand you're more of a political atheist. You're a free market guy. And I don't like some of the stuff Republicans have done or Democrats have done. But there's a derangement in the left where just because I supported Trump over Hillary, they throw coffee on you. They physically attack you. They're calling for death of members of Congress. They want Trump dead. Mainstream media promotes it. I mean, these people have gotten nothing from the system. All they see is an old system being propped up right now by Trump. And I don't want the revolution to happen if it totally collapses. They want Cloward and Piven. They think if stuff collapses, there'll be a socialist reorganization, and they're going to get some chicken in every pot scenario. They don't get that FDR was propping up a capitalist system using socialism, I guess, as an emergency. You can argue whether it was good or not, but you talk about political upheaval, the backlash against people waking up to centralization seems like piranhas on PCP. How does that feed into this political superstorm you're talking about?
Okay, I get number one. Central banks have taken over the free market capitalist system. They're setting the economy to grow at 3%, which they can't achieve through their best efforts with all the stimulation in the world, with 2% inflation. This is not how the economy works. It's a balance of opposites. You have booms and busts, inflation, deflation. The economy knows how to heal itself, just like the human body. And doctors usually spend most of their time preventing the human body from healing itself because they want to prevent the common cold, like economists want to prevent recession. So the system does have to fail, Alex, and I hate to say it, because everybody thinks, well, central banks have created another decent economy now.
No, I get it, but the left wants it to fail. The left wants it to fail and never come back.
No, well, wait, yeah. No, I want it to fail so it can come back.
No, I totally agree, but I'm saying they see free market as competition to their socialist utopia. How do we deal with that?
Well, again, I mean, Republicans want to cut taxes right at the wrong time when corporate profits are higher than ever, unemployment is lowest ever, workforce growth is not growing. We don't need more investment. We have low capacity utilization. Republicans want to stimulate through tax cuts. The Democrats want to have social engineering, which has also already failed. The whole thing has to fail, and then people have to realize, oh, we can't look to central banks. We can't look to special interests. They're never going to give us the right research to change our economy. And then you get a revolution and the people start to win. It's unfortunate, but the old system does have to fail to some significant degree to build the new out of the ashes. And I just know this from studying history. I wish it weren't the case, but that's...
Well, no, I know you're right. I mean, look at the plague.
It's prevented this from failing with all this quantitative easing and free money. They've not let the system fail, and the banks fail.
But let's look at the Black Plague in the 1600s. I mean, I know you've written about that scenario. Explain that to people. I mean, why did that cause the Renaissance?
Well, it did. When things fail, people have to get real. I always tell people, look, everyday people. I'm talking everyday people become heroes when there's a crisis. 9/11 or the barns burning. And people don't think, oh, am I going to die? They run in, they save the horse, they save the dog, they save the baby, the people. This is what happens. People get real. We are living in la-la land on both sides. The Republicans think if you just keep cutting taxes, the economy is going to grow. No, not when you've overexpanded. The liberals think, oh, if we just keep giving more welfare and printing more money, oh, we can keep going. No, these things kill the free market capitalist system. They kill, and special interests kill democracy. These things have to fail so that we don't trust them anymore and we don't look to somebody to come in and give us a free lunch. Everything
let's historically
has been a free lunch solution.
Yeah, our audience understands that. We're just trying to debate when is the big crash coming or how long could we prop it up while we get ourselves in position. And then we worry about the globalists coming in and trying to use it to take full authoritarian control, which they say they've done. And which they've done in other countries. So we know what's coming. There's a lot of problems. A lot of sharks are going to take advantage of this, not in free market ways, the way you're talking about to protect yourself, but in very predatory ways. How does the revolution thing from your historical perspective play into this?
Well, I mean, again, first of all, I mean, that's why I wrote this book, because the signs in late 2016, Brexit, and then Trump getting elected against the odds. And the day Trump got elected, we said, oh my God, even though we were cautious about the markets back then, we're not. No, the markets are going to love this. We're going to see a 25% run. Now we've seen that. So that makes me think this is like the final blow-off rally in the bubble. And the other thing I'm looking for, Alex, and it's very simple and it's starting to happen, I'm looking for a divergence between the main indexes like the NASDAQ and the Dow and the S&P and the small caps, the Russell 2000 and the Dow Transport. When those indexes start to fail before the big ones, it's a sign that the bubble's getting ready to burst. And that is starting to happen. I need a little more confirmation next month or two, but I think we're in a topping process, and this chart is perfect. That we've had 4 bubbles in this bubble boom. And I always call in our long-term research, we have 4 seasons in our economy. Spring boom, inflationary recession like the 70s, a fall bubble boom, and then a depression or a winter season. This is the 4th and largest bubble. And people keep going on CNBC and all these financial news stations saying, oh, this isn't a bubble because all these reasons. This is a bubble. It's the biggest bubble in all history. China's even bigger than ours. This bubble looks ready to blow. I would guess it's topping between October and January, and between 2018, 19, and 20, when our indicators are the most negative, is when we're going to see this worst of this financial downturn. But again, what I'm saying in this book, the political and the social repercussions, this blue-red split and this whole, how do we reorganize our world around more compatible cultures, that's going to take many, many years. And this backlash against globalization, which, again, was a good trend for a long time, but it went too far. Globalization has just brought us into each other's throats, and everybody hates each other. Rich versus poor, black versus white, Sunni versus Shia, red versus blue. Baby boomers versus millennials. Millennials feel totally threatened by the baby booms, massive debt and entitlement, and they are. So we have to sort all this out. It's going to be messy, which is why you need to preserve your wealth, get in safe investments, be in a safe place, and be healthy. That's what you need to get through this. And if you do, the world's going to be your oyster.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you that we're sitting on top of a giant bubble. That's just a fact. I'm concerned there are people that actually want to bring the bubble down and have Trump's recovery fail just so they can blame him. That's not even looking at, he's just trying to put off something that was already there. And, you've been saying the bubble was going to bust for the last few years. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, who knows now? There were so many artificial things suppressing the economy before, like regulations and the coal being turned off, that you add all those other stimulus in, who knows? But I agree, it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't, because it props it up and everything's okay for a while, but then when it implodes, it's even bigger. So we'll talk about how you would protect yourself straight ahead. And then we've got a bunch of technology news in the final segment before Paul Joseph Watson takes over from London, England in the 4th hour. Here's what I know. People are balkanizing. The parasitic left has always used government funding to fund their own projects, their own art operations, you name it. The left also usually are managers over disenfranchised groups of people that live in government housing or kind of warehousing foster children, things like that. It's what they do. It's their business. And they don't know any better. So if they see society collapsing, they see that as more for them to feed on. So the big problem with the reality equation that Mr. Dent's talking about is we're talking about how to make things better once the correction comes. We're talking about ways to protect ourselves, but also stabilize the government. They're looking at ways to overthrow everything. And that's why I'm saying it's more critical than ever to financially support shows like InfoWars. Why it's more important than ever to exercise your free speech and wear the new Won't Tread on Me incredible Gadsden flag Culpeper Minutemen shirt that we have at InfoWarsStore.com. Because in the future, more than anything, it's going to be financially supporting organizations and groups and people that are fighting for your basic worldview and your way of life. This is something conservatives never really do, or libertarians never do. We kind of just live our own lives and run our own lives, and we don't want to run other people's lives. Well, if you don't want somebody running your life, you're going to have to get politically involved. You're going to have to get financially involved. And not just educate yourself with books like 0 Hour that, again, I'm going to be reading this weekend by Harry S. Dent, but the book that Savage wrote or the information we cover. Briefly, I want to play this clip as he mentioned worldwide revolutions. Countries working with countries is a great idea. It opens up markets, more products, more innovation, more ideas. Anybody in any type of business will tell you, more people, more business, more connections, more ideas. It's the opposite of stagnation. But you try to bring in and repopulate Europe with third world Muslim populations, and then the left's there to get them all on welfare, that's a disaster. You want to put an EU army out to take over countries because they want to pull out. Well, that's the fastest way to make them pull out even quicker. And you can say, well, Spain will keep Catalan in for a while longer. Doesn't matter. Once the people know they're captured, it's like some guy that's chaining his wife up when he goes to work. She's going to get loose someday. You're going to go to jail, or she's going to be long gone. And we've reached that point where the left is trying, who isn't even the left, just people that feel like they're the left, are there to dominate folks. It's not working anymore. So I want to ask Mr. Dent, historically looking at the charts, how this revolution fleshes out, how it could look. But he's predicted it. I predicted it. Ron Paul's predicted it. So many others have predicted it. The CIA people we've had on, like Steve Pachenik, had predicted it 10 years ago, that the EU would fail and things would break up. It's here. What does that mean as the central controllers push authoritarianism? Here is a clip of Nigel Farage, the fastest growing movement, not just in the UK that gave us Brexit, but also in Europe, pointing out what's really going on. Here it is.
Mr. Farage, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. As Mr. Moscovici said at the start of this, the leak of all these papers and lists of people with offshore holdings has come about because of the Society of Investigative Journalists. But what's not been said this morning, and I think is relevant, is that the funding of these investigations came from one George Soros. Now, I say this at a time, I'm going to come back to so what, and it may have some personal interest for you as well. I say this at a time when the use of money and the influence it may have had on the Brexit result or the Trump election has reached a level of virtual hysteria. Just last week, the Electoral Commission in the UK launched an investigation to find out whether the Leave campaign took offshore money or Russian money. This came about as a result of questions asked in the House of Commons by one Ben Bradshaw, somebody linked to an organisation called Open Society. I just wonder, when we're talking about offshore money, when we're talking about political subversion, when we're talking about collusion, I wonder whether we're looking in the wrong place. And I say that because George Soros recently gave Open Society, his organisation, which of course campaigns for free movement of peoples and supports supranational structures like the European Union, he recently gave it $18 billion. And his influence here and in Brussels is truly extraordinary. Open Society boast that they had 42 meetings last year with the European Commission. They've even published a book of reliable friends in the European Parliament. And there are 226 names on that list, including yours, sir. I thought you'd find this interesting. We even had last week Mr. Verhofstadt lobbying on behalf of Mr. Soros at the Conference of Presidents in a battle that is going on with Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary. If we're going to have a debate, and we're going to talk about full political and financial transparency, well, let's do it. So I should be writing today to all 226 of you, asking some pretty fair questions. Have you ever received funds, directly or indirectly, from Open Society? How many of their events have you attended? Could you please give us a list of the meetings of all the representatives, including George Soros yourself? And I think this Parliament should now set up a special committee to look into all of this. And I say that because I fear we could be looking at the biggest level of international political collusion in history.
And I've said this thousands of times. They change it to Russia because they're bringing in globalism. These multinational groups like TPP that literally do conquer us, they're scared, so they wanted to turn the investigation around. And now it's blowing up in their face. And now the EU army's announcing it's taking over. And one day after, 5 countries say they're ready to repel the invasion. This is kind of shaping up almost like pre-World War II in a weird way. You got Juncker, the heir of the Nazis, threatening the U.S., running the unelected EU. How does this fit into your equation, Mr. Dent?
Well, you know, again, I've been waiting on this for 20 years now, Alex. In the Roaring 2000s, my best-selling book, I brought in this whole network revolution, bottoms up. Now, again, free market capitalism and democracy were the first bottoms-up revolution in all of history. Everything was top-down, aristocracy controlled since then. This is deeper. We've got back down with special interests. Central banks have taken over. And we need an economy globally that can let everybody be their own thing and grow from the bottoms up, like you said, from organizations that you favor and not from some top-down sort of thing. All of this stuff can survive together if they all have their own spaces and their own support, and the system can accommodate.
I was about to say, won't the globalists themselves, the good, the bad, the ugly, destroy themselves, making this existential fight with nationalism a real thing? Don't they get they're going to lose?
No, okay, they think they're going to lose because they're controlling things from the top down. Bottoms up, say, look, the stock exchanges operate totally from the bottoms up, not top down, and they only get bigger and bigger. You can have global and you can have bottom up. What we have now is global and top down, and that's the problem. Everything in this book, everything I've written for 20, 30 years has said we need a bottoms-up revolution like in the late 1700s, only information.
No, I know you've been calling it. You've been calling it for 20 years. I'm saying,
yeah.
How nasty is it going to get? Because they've signaled they're going to get very violent.
Look, it is going to get nasty. That's what we're saying. You can't have a revolution. Look, I mean, they were cutting off heads in France, and we had the Revolutionary War in the United States. It is nasty. Revolutions are never easy, but they are necessary, and they come at times like this. Again, I can't stop the revolution. I can't stop all the cycles I'm looking at. All I can do is help people prepare for it. Again, protect the wealth you have now at the top of this bubble. Don't hold out for more. Live in the safest place you can live in, and be prepared for change and to take advantage of it. It's just that simple.
That's right. There's going to be major breakdown, major crime. We've tried to prop this thing up, but once it goes south, they're going to unloose their hordes, the communists. It's going to be, thank God we have the Second Amendment, but folks, 0 hour, available at Harry Dent's website, harrydent.com. Thank you so much for coming on with us. Look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Okay, thank you, Alec.
Yeah, I've got 4 children, and I've studied history, and it does repeat itself, and the elites are all digging in, and Trump's tried to get things going again. They're trying to block him. I think we could have made it out of this, but it's now them trying to block it. It's probably going to completely blow up, and when it does, folks, when it does, I just say prop it up as long as we can, because when it blows, I tell you, it's going to be bad.